Okay. Society is obliged to bestow the privileges of adulthood upon its members once they are mature enough to accept the corresponding responsibilities. But science has established that physiological development is completed in most persons by age 17. Since this maturing process has been completed by most 17-year-olds, there is no reason not to grant these citizens all of the privileges of adulthood.
All right, what is our conclusion?
There's no reason not to grant these citizens all privileges of adulthood.
Yeah. And then what do you think is our flaw?
That just because they're mature doesn't mean they need privileges of adulthood, or they should be treated right.
Yeah.
I think. But just because science says like you're developed doesn't mean you should be treated like an adult at the age of 17.
Yeah. Like maybe there's something else other than, since maturing has been completed by most, there's no reason to grant, like, just because our physiological development is completed at 17 doesn't mean that there's not something else that's not completely developed, right?
Like
Maybe this is me not knowing enough about like physiology and stuff, where they're like, no, that's what determines it. But I think my lack of knowledge about things helps me on this test, because I'm like, well, maybe this other thing is required. Like you have to be, 5 feet tall. I'm just kidding. I don't know. But
like I think a physiological, like, okay, that's developmental, but what about your mind? Your mind is not mature.
mental mature. Don't they say like that's like 25? And that scares me when it comes to court cases and kids that get in trouble. And I'm like, they don't have control. Like I have so much mercy and empathy, because I'm like, what's their mind? Like, yeah. Anyways, so yeah. All right. So go ahead and go through these answer choices for me.
Okay, the editorialist argument is most vulnerable to criticism on the ground that it assumes what it is trying to prove. No. I don't
Right.
no.
No, it's not circular reasoning, right?
Yeah. No. Too hastily reaches a general conclusion on the basis of a few examples. I kept that answer when I went through because I thought it was just assuming like, okay, you're going from 17, you're saying just because some people are mature enough, that means they all should be.
Okay. And but is that, I can see, and I'm okay with you leaving that answer open, but is our main problem that we reached this conclusion just using a few examples?
No.
No.
So I guess yeah.
That's what's wrong, where like I kind of just restated it with like different tone, but our problem is not that it's based on a few examples, because it's not like, oh, these 10 people that do this one, because it would, even with it being based on a few examples, that doesn't mean that this physiological thing is enough to guarantee it.
And is it because it also says like it's completed in most persons? So like most
people, yeah. I think where people get this one confused is they're like, I think some people, when they read few examples, they think like, oh, you're only talking about a few things. But few examples is not talking about, oh, it's based on like few like reasonings. It's truly talking about the people that we're talking about, which is what you picked up on. Okay, go ahead and go on with this one.
Okay, I did keep this one. I was between B and C. I kept C open too, but I just kind of didn't understand it. But equivocates with respect to a central concept.
So equivocates just means like it says is the same or it's synonymous. So do we say that respect is the same thing as a central concept? I don't really know what that means, to be honest. So we're saying like a central like we say respect is the same as a central concept. I'm like, I don't even really know.
No,
no. I don't think we're equivocating anything. That's not the flaw that I said, but maybe I would leave it open since I don't quite exactly know what it's saying.
Okay.
Equivocation normally is whenever we use a word. I've only seen it a couple times on the test, but there's one question out there that it uses like laissez-faire and like and democracy or something like that, and it tries but it's whenever you use, oh no, laissez-faire and anarchy. They try to like, they use the word and they give like different definitions for it. So it's like if I would talk about like a tree bark and then a dog barking and then say like all trees have bark, therefore this dog must be covered in bark or something like that. Like I would mess up the definition of that word. That's a terrible example of it though.
Okay.
All right, so go on.
Okay, too readily accepts a claim by appeal to inappropriate authority. No. That has nothing to do. It just doesn't sound like a good answer.
Wait, I'm kind of, okay, but inappropriate to, okay. I don't like any of these answer choices now though.
Yeah, that's why I was like, this is such a stinky question. Ignores the fact that some people are mature at age 16. That has nothing to do because we're talking about 17-year-olds. Like the study is,
Yeah.
we're not talking about 16-year-olds or anything. We're talking about 17.
Okay, you know what? I think I missed this part where equivocation, where I didn't understand this, and I'm guessing this has to be the answer, and I just reread the stimulus, and it said society is obliged to bestow the privileges of adulthood upon its members once they are mature enough to accept the corresponding responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
But science has established that physics is compiled by most people by, so we're thinking that physiological development is the same thing as mature enough to accept the corresponding responsibilities. So equivocates with respect to a central concept. Equivocates with respect to a central concept.
So when I looked up equivocates and it was like, you use ambiguous language to conceal the truth or avoid committing oneself. So is it saying like you're physiologically developed, so therefore we should treat you like a adult, and that make an essential concept to kind of like say, okay, even though.
I'm trying to think, I think that equivocates with respect to a central concept. I think what it's saying is, so I would have picked this one because I know it's not doing the other ones. And I'm like, this is the one I don't understand. And so I'm going to go with it. Equivocates with respect to a central concept. So we're saying that we get there with respect to a central and the central concept is this is the central concept. And so we're saying like, hey, this must be kind of applied to whatever. So we're saying like, hey, we use this principle almost as if it is everything. And we're saying like, well, this must be. So since this is a way of judging it, it must be.
Yeah.
I do not love my explanation for that question though.